The baker's knife slices through layers of vanilla sponge and buttercream, revealing something that shouldn't exist: a delicate gold locket, tarnished but unmistakable, nestled in the cake's heart like a buried secret. Margaret Chin's hands tremble as she recognizes the engraving: "Forever yours, R." The same locket that disappeared with bride Sarah Whitmore 10 years ago. Rewind to 1999. That the morning of June 12th dawns crisp and cloudless over Millbrook, Connecticut. Sarah Whitmore stands before her childhood bedroom mirror, her grandmother's pearl necklace catching the early sunlight streaming through lace curtains. At 26, she possesses the kind of understated beauty that draws second glances. Auburn hair swept into an elegant updo, green eyes bright with anticipation, and a smile that has charmed everyone from the mailman to her stern future mother-in-law. "You look perfect, sweetheart." Her mother, Linda, adjusts the cathedral veil one final time, tears threatening to spill mascara down her cheeks. "Your father would be so proud." Sarah's reflection wavers for just a moment. Her father died 3 years ago in a car accident, leaving behind a small insurance policy and a mountain of medical debt that still haunts the family. Today's wedding represents more than love, it's their salvation. Robert Carlyle, her fiancé, comes from old Connecticut money, the kind that built libraries and funded scholarships. His family's textile fortune dates back 4 generations. "Mom, stop fussing." Sarah reaches for the gold locket on her dresser, the one Robert gave her for their 2-year anniversary. She fastens it around her neck, the metal cool against her skin. "I need a moment alone, okay?" Linda squeezes her daughter's shoulders and retreats downstairs, where caterers buzz through the house like worker bees, transforming their modest colonial into a wedding venue. The ceremony will take place in the backyard under a white canvas tent, followed by dinner and dancing. 150 guests, including Robert's business associates and half the social register of Hartford County. Sarah sits on her bed, fingering the locket. Inside, Robert's photograph smiles back at her, his Harvard Business School graduation picture, all confidence and promise. She snaps it shut and walks to the window overlooking the garden. White roses bloom along the fence line, their petals beginning to unfurl in the warming air. Everything is picture perfect, almost everything. The phone rings downstairs, followed by her mother's muffled voice growing increasingly agitated. Sarah frowns. Last-minute wedding crises aren't uncommon, but something in her mother's tone sets her nerves on edge. She smooths her dress and heads for the staircase. "Absolutely not. I don't care what you think you found. This is my daughter's wedding day." Linda's voice carries from the kitchen, sharp with protective fury. Sarah pauses on the landing. Through the banister spindles, she can see her mother clutching the cordless phone, her knuckles white against the plastic. Who would do such a thing? On today of all days. Linda's voice drops to a whisper, but Sarah catches fragments. "Can't prove anything. Old gossip. Destroyed the evidence myself." A chill runs down Sarah's spine despite the warm morning air. She takes another step down, the old floorboard creaking under her satin heel. Linda spins around, her face pale except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. "Sarah, I didn't hear you coming down." She forces a smile and hangs up the phone. Just the florist double-checking delivery times. "Mom." Sarah's voice is steady, but her heart pounds. "Who was that really?" "I told you, honey. Wedding details." Linda busies herself with a stack of programs, not meeting her daughter's eyes. "You should be getting ready. Robert will be here soon for pictures." But Sarah knows her mother's tells. The way she touches her throat when lying, how her voice pitches slightly higher. Before she can press further, car doors slam outside. Through the front window, she watches Robert emerge from his black Mercedes, resplendent in his morning coat. His best man, Marcus Webb, unfolds from the passenger seat, already reaching for his camera. "Showtime," Sarah murmurs, pushing her unease aside. Today is supposed to be perfect. She's worked too hard, come too far, to let paranoia spoil everything. Robert bounds up the front steps 2 at a time, his face lighting up when he sees her through the screen door. "You look absolutely radiant," he says, careful not to touch her dress before the ceremony. "Ready to become Mrs. Carlyle?" "More than ready." She rises on her toes to kiss his cheek, breathing in his familiar cologne, something expensive and woody that he orders from London. "Though I think your mother might faint from excitement. She's been planning this wedding since our second date, Robert laughs. I've created a monster. As if summoned by their conversation, Eleanor Carlisle's Bentley pulls into the driveway. Robert's mother emerges wearing a powder blue suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the June humidity. She's followed by Robert's sister Catherine and her husband David, both looking slightly overwhelmed by Eleanor's pre-wedding energy. Sarah, darling. Eleanor sweeps up the walkway, arms outstretched. The church called to confirm everything is ready. Oh, you look lovely. That dress fits you like a dream. The morning accelerates into a blur of posed photographs, final touch-ups, and last-minute coordination. Sarah finds herself swept along in the current of activity, her earlier anxiety buried under layers of hairspray and well wishes. The phone call becomes a distant memory, filed away with other pre-wedding jitters at 11:30, the wedding. Party loads into a convoy of cars for the short drive to St. Michael's Episcopal Church. Sarah rides alone with her mother in the hired limousine, watching familiar neighborhoods blur past the tinted windows. Millbrook has been her whole world for 26 years. She knows every street corner, every family secret, every story whispered over grocery store checkout lanes. Nervous? Linda asks, adjusting her own corsage. A little. Sarah touches the locket at her throat. Good nervous, though? Like standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to jump. Her mother's smile falters for just a moment. Sometimes the fall is longer than you expect, sweetheart. Before Sarah can ask what she means, they're pulling up to the church. St. Michael's stone facade rises before them like something from a fairy tale, its stained glass windows catching and fracturing the midday sun. Wedding guests stream through. The heavy oak doors, Robert's business associates in expensive suits, her friends from high school looking slightly awed by the grandeur, elderly relatives dabbing at their eyes with handkerchiefs. Sarah takes a deep breath as Marcus opens her door. The next few hours will change everything. She'll walk down that aisle as Sarah Whitmore and emerge as Sarah Carlisle, heir to a fortune and a legacy that stretches back generations. All her money worries, all her mother's sleepless nights over bills and debts will become distant memories. She gathers her skirts and steps onto the pavement, her grandmother's pearls warm against her collarbone. Through the church's open doors, she can hear the organist running through scales, preparing for her processional. In 30 minutes, she'll become everything she's ever dreamed of being. But first, she needs to survive what's coming next. The phone call her mother received wasn't from the florist. It was from Detective Raymond Mills of the Connecticut State Police, and the information he shared will shatter more than just one wedding day. Someone has been digging into the Carlisle family's past, uncovering secrets that certain people thought were buried forever, and Sarah Whitmore is about to walk straight into the crossfire. The church sanctuary fills with the gentle murmur of arriving guests. Sarah stands in the bride's room, a small chamber adjacent to the nave where generations of Millbrook brides have made their final preparations. Sunlight streams through a single stained glass window, casting jeweled patterns across the cream-colored walls. 5 minutes, Miss Whitmore. The wedding coordinator, a brisk woman named Janet, pokes her head through the door. Your mother is taking her seat now. Sarah nods, checking her reflection one last time. The antique mirror shows a vision in white, silk and French lace, but her eyes betray a flicker of the anxiety she's been fighting all morning. She touches the locket again, a nervous habit she's developed over the past 2 years. The soft knock interrupts her thoughts. Come in. Catherine Carlisle slips inside, elegant in her maid-of-honor dress of pale green silk. At 32, she's 6 years older than Sarah and carries herself with the unconscious poise that comes from old money and private schools. Her dark hair is swept into a chignon, and her smile seems slightly strained. You look beautiful, Sarah. Robert is pacing like a caged tiger out there. Wedding nerves. Sarah smooths her skirts. I keep expecting something to go wrong. You know that feeling. Catherine's smile grows more genuine. Every bride feels it. I threw up twice before my wedding to David. She moves closer, lowering her voice. Can I share something with you? Sister to sister? Sarah nods, touched by the gesture. Catherine has always been kind but distant, their relationship polite rather than warm. Perhaps marriage will change that. Robert's never been this happy. Ever since he met you. It's like he discovered color in a black and white world. Catherine pauses, seeming to choose her words carefully. Our family. We can be complicated. There are expectations, traditions. But don't let that change who you are, promise me. I promise. Sarah squeezes her future sister-in-law's hand. Thank you for saying that. Catherine starts to respond when raised voices echo from the hallway outside. Both women freeze, listening to what sounds like an argument near the church. Entrance. Absolutely not appropriate today. Deserve to know the truth. Will not have this family dragged. The voices fade as the speakers apparently move away from the bride's room. Catherine's face has gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. What was that about? Sarah asks. Probably just logistics. You know how mother gets when events don't run precisely on schedule. But Catherine's hands tremble as she adjusts. Sarah's veil. The important thing is that you're about to marry the man you love. Janet reappears, looking flustered. I'm sorry, but there's been a small delay. We need perhaps 10 more minutes. What kind of delay? Sarah's anxiety spikes. Just a guest situation. Nothing to concern yourself with. Maybe touch up your lipstick? After Janet disappears again, Sarah moves to the small window that overlooks the church's side parking lot. She can see Robert's Mercedes gleaming in the sunlight, along with dozens of other cars. Near the church steps, she spots Eleanor Carlisle. In deep conversation with a man Sarah doesn't recognize, middle-aged, wearing a rumpled suit that screams government employee rather than wedding guest. Catherine, who is that man with your mother? Catherine joins her at the window, and Sarah feels her stiffen. I'm not sure. Probably someone from the catering company. He doesn't look like catering staff. Sarah, you're just nervous. It's perfectly normal too. The bride's room door opens again, but this time it's not Janet. Linda Whitmore steps inside, and her face tells Sarah everything she needs to know. Something is very, very wrong. Mom, what's happening? Linda closes the door behind her and leans against it, as if barricading them inside. Sweetheart, we need to talk. The wedding starts in 5 minutes. Whatever it is can wait. No, it can't. Linda's voice carries a gravity that stops Sarah cold. That phone call this morning? It wasn't the florist. Catherine backs toward the window, her face ashen. Mrs. Whitmore, perhaps this isn't the best time. When would be a better time? After my daughter says I do to someone who might be. Linda stops herself, pressing her lips together. Might be what? Sarah's voice rises. Mom, you're scaring me. The call was from a detective. Connecticut State Police. They've reopened an investigation into something that happened 25 years ago. What investigation? But even as Sarah asks, she notices Catherine edging toward the door. A young woman named Patricia Vance. She was engaged to Robert's father, Charles Carlisle, back in 1974. 2 weeks before their wedding, she disappeared. The word hangs in the air like a poison cloud. Sarah sinks onto the small velvet chair, her wedding dress pooling around her like spilled cream. Disappeared how? No one knows. She was there one day, gone the next. Her car was found abandoned at Hartford Airport, but no record of her boarding any flight. No credit card activity, no contact with family or friends. Like she just vanished. Sarah's hands find the locket at her throat. What does this have to do with Robert? He would have been, 2 years old. It's not about Robert. Linda's voice drops to a whisper. It's about his family. The detective said they've received new information. Someone came forward with evidence that Patricia Vance didn't disappear voluntarily. What kind of evidence? I don't know. He wouldn't say over the phone. But Sarah. Linda moves closer, kneeling beside her daughter's chair. He asked specifically, about you, about this wedding. He wanted to know if there had been any threats, any unusual incidents. The room spins slightly. Sarah grips the chair arms, her carefully styled hair feeling too tight, her dress too constricting. Why would he ask about me? Catherine clears her throat from near the door. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Patricia Vance was troubled. Everyone knew that. She had mental health issues, problems with drinking. Her disappearance was tragic, but not mysterious. Then why reopen the case? Linda's voice is sharp. And why today? Why my daughter's wedding day? Through the window, Sarah can see more cars arriving. Late guests hurrying up the church steps, checking their watches. The organist has begun playing processional music, Pachelbel's canon, just as she requested. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned, except for the growing certainty that her perfect day is about to implode and a new knock at the door interrupts the tense silence. This time it's Robert himself, slightly out of breath and looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Sarah, I need to speak with you. Privately, Catherine and Linda exchange glances. Robert, it's bad luck to see the bride before. Catherine begins. Forget superstition. His voice carries an edge Sarah has never heard before. This can't wait. Linda reluctantly steps aside, and Robert enters, closing the door firmly behind him. His usual composed demeanor has cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. There's a detective here. He's asking questions about my family, about our wedding. I need you to know that whatever he tells you, whatever anyone tells you, it has nothing to do with us. With you and me. Robert, what happened to Patricia Vance? He freezes, and for a moment, Sarah sees something flicker across his face. Surprise, fear, calculation? How do you know that, Nate? The detective called my mother this morning. He's reopened the investigation. Robert runs his hands through his carefully styled hair, pacing the small room like a trapped animal. Patricia Vance was disturbed. She was obsessed with my father, wouldn't accept that their relationship was over. When he tried to break their engagement, she threatened to hurt herself, to hurt our family. But she disappeared before the wedding. She ran away, probably to California or Florida, somewhere she could start over. It happens all the time. Then why the new investigation? Robert stops pacing and looks directly at her, his blue eyes intense. Because someone is trying to destroy my family. Someone with a grudge, spreading lies and innuendo. They know today is important to us, so they're timing this to cause maximum damage. Sarah wants to believe him. Looking at his face, handsome, earnest, desperate, she wants to trust that this is all some terrible mistake. But doubt has taken root, growing like a cancer in her chest. What kind of new evidence? I don't know. The detective won't say. But Sarah, I need you to promise me something. He kneels beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Whatever happens today, whatever anyone tells you, remember that I love you. That we love each other. That's the only truth that matters. His hands are cold despite the warm day, and Sarah notices they're trembling slightly. Robert Carlyle, who has never shown uncertainty about anything, is terrified. Robert, if there's something you need to tell me, there's nothing. I swear to you on my father's grave, there's nothing. But his father isn't dead. Charles Carlyle is very much alive, residing in a private care facility in Hartford after suffering a stroke 3 years ago. The slip sends ice through Sarah's veins. Before she can process this further, urgent knocking erupts at the door. Janet's voice carries through the wood, high with panic. Miss Whitmore, we have a situation. The police want to speak with you immediately. Detective Raymond Mills stands in the church vestibule like a storm cloud in a house of worship. Mid-50s with graying temples and eyes that have seen too much, he holds a manila folder that seems to pulse with malevolent energy. Around him, wedding guests mill in confusion, their festive chatter replaced by nervous whispers. Sarah emerges from the bride's room flanked by Robert and her mother, her wedding dress now feeling more like a costume than a celebration. The detective's gaze finds her immediately, and she sees something unexpected there. Not suspicion, but concern. Miss Whitmore, I apologize for the intrusion. I'm Detective Mills, Connecticut State Police. His voice is gentle but firm. I need to speak with you about Patricia Vance. Can't this wait until after? Robert begins. No, it can't. Mills's tone sharpens when he addresses Robert. Mr. Carlyle, I think you know why. Eleanor Carlyle materializes beside her son, her powder blue suit immaculate, but her composure cracking. Detective, this is harassment. Our family has cooperated fully with every inquiry about that unfortunate girl over the years. Have you? Mills opens his folder, revealing what appears to be a photograph. Then perhaps you can explain this. He holds up a black and white image. Slightly grainy but clear enough. It shows a young woman with dark hair and delicate features, wearing what appears to be a wedding dress. She's standing in front of a church that looks remarkably similar to St. Michael's. Sarah's breath catches. The woman in the photograph could be her sister, same build, same facial structure, even the same style of hair. The resemblance is uncanny. Patricia Vance, 2 days before she disappeared, Mills explains. Taken during her final dress fitting. So, Eleanor's voice wavers despite her defiant words. What does that prove? By itself, nothing. But combined with what we found yesterday. Mills produces another photograph, this one in color but badly aged. It shows the same woman, but this time she's clearly distressed. Her hair is disheveled, her dress torn, and there's something that might be blood on her hands. This was discovered in a safety deposit box registered to Charles Carlyle. The box was accessed for the first time in 25 years yesterday, when the bank contacted your family about overdue fees. Robert's face drains of color. That's impossible. My father never mentioned any safety deposit box. According to bank records, he's been paying the fees through automatic withdrawal from a trust account. The payment stopped when he had his stroke, triggering the bank's investigation. Sarah stares at the photographs, her mind struggling to process the implications. The woman in the images looks so much like her that several wedding guests have begun staring, whispering among themselves. What else was in the box? Linda asks quietly. Mills hesitates, then produces a small evidence bag. Inside is a gold locket, tarnished with age but clearly identical to the one Sarah wears around her neck. Her hand flies to her throat, fingers finding her own locket still safely in place. This belonged to Patricia Vance. Her initials are engraved on the back, along with a date, June 12, 1974. 25 years ago today. The church falls silent except for the whisper of fabric as wedding guests shift uncomfortably. Sarah's wedding date, chosen because it held special meaning for her. And Robert suddenly feels like a cruel joke. There's more, Mills continues. We found a letter in the box, written by Patricia to someone she calls C, presumably Charles Carlyle. In it, she mentions discovering something about the family business, something she threatens to expose, unless he calls off their wedding. Eleanor Carlyle's mask finally slips completely. You don't understand. Patricia was unstable. She made wild accusations, tried to blackmail our family with lies and fabrications. What kind of accusations? Sarah's voice cuts through the tension like a blade. Nothing that concerns you, dear, Eleanor says quickly. Ancient history that has no bearing on everything that concerns this family concerns me, Sarah interrupts, surprising herself with her vehemence. I'm about to marry into it. What did Patricia Vance discover? Mills exchanges glances with his partner, a younger detective who's been taking notes. According to the letter, she uncovered evidence that Carlyle Textiles was using undocumented workers in unsafe conditions. When several workers died in what was reported as an accidental fire, she believed it was actually covered up to hide the labor violations. That's preposterous, Robert says, but his voice lacks conviction. Our company has always maintained the highest standards. In 1974, maybe not so much, Mills replies. We're reviewing the original fire investigation, but if Patricia's claims are true, it would have destroyed your family's reputation and resulted in criminal charges. Sarah's legs feel unsteady. She reaches for the nearest pew, gripping the polished wood as her world tilts on its axis. Everything she thought she knew about the Carlyle family, their integrity, their charitable works, their sterling reputation, might be built on a foundation of lies and cover-ups. But why kill her? Linda asks. Why not just discredit her accusations? Because she had proof, Mills says grimly. The letter mentions documents, photographs, witness statements. She was preparing to take everything to the authorities. Then, where's the proof now? Robert demands. If she had all this evidence, where is it? Mills closes his folder, but his expression suggests he's far from finished. That's what we're trying to determine. But Mr. Carlyle, I have to ask, has anyone in your family received any unusual communications recently? Threats, blackmail, attempts, anything that might suggest someone else has found Patricia's evidence? The question hangs in the air like incense, heavy and suffocating. Sarah notices Robert and Eleanor exchange a quick glance. There and gone so fast, she almost misses it. No, Eleanor says firmly. Nothing like that. But Sarah remembers the phone call that morning, her mother's agitated voice carrying fragments of conversation. Can't prove anything. Old gossip. Destroyed the evidence myself. Detective Mills, she says slowly. The phone call this morning. You mentioned you'd received new information. What kind of information? A package arrived at our office yesterday. Anonymous, postmarked locally. It contained copies of documents that appear to be Patricia Vance's missing evidence. Employment records, safety inspection reports, correspondence between Charles Carlyle and local officials, along with a note claiming that someone in your wedding party knows where the originals are hidden. The church erupts in murmurs. Wedding guests crane their necks, trying to hear better, while the wedding party looks around suspiciously at each other. Sarah feels exposed, like a specimen under a microscope. Who would do such a thing? She whispers. Someone who wants the truth to come out, Mills replies. Someone who's been waiting 25 years for justice. Suddenly, the church doors burst open with a bang that echoes through the sanctuary. Marcus Webb, Robert's best man, stumbles inside, his face flushed and his shirt torn. He's been running, and his eyes hold the wild look of a man pursued. Robert, he gasps, we need to leave. Now. Marcus, what's wrong? Where have you been? I went to get something from the car, and there was a woman there. An older woman, maybe 60. She knew about Patricia, knew about the fire. She said. He glances nervously at Detective Mills. She said she's been waiting 25 years to see justice done. What woman? What did she look like? Dark hair gone gray, average height. But Robert, that's not the worst part. Marcus's voice drops to a whisper. She knew about the locket. Your locket, Sarah. She said Patricia had a twin, and that the real target was never Patricia at all. Sarah's world stops spinning and crashes to a halt. The locket at her throat suddenly feels like a noose, its familiar weight now alien and menacing. What do you mean, the real target? Marcus looks directly at her, his face pale with terror. She said Patricia discovered the truth just before she died. The Carlyle family didn't just cover up the fire. They've been systematically eliminating anyone who threatens their secrets. And Sarah, she said you're next on the list. The church explodes into chaos. Wedding guests push toward the exits, their formal attire a sharp contrast to their panicked expressions. Sarah feels Robert's hand on her arm, pulling her toward the side door, but Detective Mills blocks their path. Nobody leaves until we sort this out, he commands, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. But it's too late. Through the stained glass windows, Sarah can see figures moving in the shadows of the parking lot. Someone has been watching, waiting for exactly this moment. The trap has been 25 years in the making, and Sarah Whitmore has walked right into it. The church parking lot becomes a maze of confusion as wedding guests scatter like startled birds. Sarah finds herself pressed against Robert's side, his arm protectively around her waist, but even his familiar presence feels alien now. Everything she thought she knew has been turned upside down in the span of minutes. Detective Mills barks orders into his radio, calling for backup units to secure the perimeter. His partner, Detective Sarah Chun, begins herding guests back toward the church entrance, but several cars have already pulled away, their occupants apparently deciding that discretion is the better part of valor. Mrs. Carlyle. Mills addresses Eleanor, who stands frozen near the church steps like a statue in powder blue. I need you to think carefully. Has anyone contacted your family recently about Patricia Vance? Any letters, phone calls, unusual visitors? Eleanor's composure has completely shattered. Her perfectly styled hair is coming loose, and her hands shake as she clutches her purse. There was a letter. Last week. But I thought it was just another crank. What kind of letter? And signed. It said that Patricia's death wouldn't be forgotten, that justice would be served on her wedding day. Eleanor's voice cracks. I assumed it was from some conspiracy theorist. We get them sometimes, people who read too much into old news stories. Sarah feels Robert's grip tighten on her arm. You didn't think to mention this? He hisses. I was protecting you. Both of you. Eleanor's mask of refined dignity crumbles. Completely. I've spent 25 years trying to put that nightmare behind us. I wasn't going to let it ruin your happiness. Where's the letter now? Mills demands. I burned it. I didn't want Sarah to see it and worry unnecessarily. Sarah steps away from Robert, her wedding dress rustling against the concrete. The weight of her grandmother's pearls feels suffocating, and the locket at her throat seems to pulse with its own malevolent heartbeat. Detective Mills, you said Patricia had a twin. What did you mean? Mills exchanges glances with his partner. We're not entirely sure. The woman Marcus encountered mentioned it, but there's no record of Patricia Vance having any siblings. She was an only child, orphaned at 16. Then who was she talking about? That's what we need to find out. But Sarah, I have to ask, has anyone ever told you that you resemble someone? Specifically, Someone from an older generation? The question hits like a physical blow. Sarah's mother steps forward, her face pale as parchment. Detective, surely you don't think, Mom. Sarah's voice cuts through the chaos with crystalline clarity. Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now. Linda Whitmore looks around at the assembled crowd, police officers, wedding guests, the Carlisle family, as if searching for an escape route. Finding none, she closes her eyes and takes a shuddering breath. Patricia Vance was my sister. The confession detonates like a bomb in the charged air. Sarah stumbles backward, her hand flying to her throat. Robert catches her elbow, but she shakes him off, staring at her mother with a mixture of horror and betrayal. Your sister? But you told me you were an only child. I was, after Patricia died. Linda's voice is barely a whisper. She was my twin sister, older by 3 minutes. We looked almost identical, especially when we were young. Detective. Mills steps closer, his expression sharp with interest. Ms. Whitmore, are you saying you've known all along what happened to Patricia Vance? I knew she was dead. I knew the Carlisle family was responsible, but I could never prove it. Linda's eyes are bright with unshed tears. Patricia was always the brave one, the one who stood up for what was right. When she discovered what Charles Carlisle was doing to those workers, she couldn't let it go. So you've been planning this for 25 years. Robert's voice is hoarse with disbelief. You deliberately introduced Sarah to me? Orchestrated our entire relationship? No. Linda's denial is fierce. I never planned for you two to meet. That was genuine coincidence. But when Sarah told me she was dating a Carlisle, when I saw how happy you made her, she trails off, unable to finish. Sarah feels the world tilting beneath her feet. You used me. You let me fall in love with him, plan a wedding, build a life. All while knowing his family killed your sister. I thought maybe if you married him, I could find peace. Maybe Patricia's death would finally mean something. By destroying my life. Sarah's voice rises to a near shout. By turning me into some kind of weapon. I wanted to protect you. I tried to talk you out of the engagement a dozen times, but you were so happy, so sure. Because you never told me the truth. Detective Mills raises his hands, trying to restore order. Everyone needs to calm down. We still don't know who sent that package or who the woman in the parking lot was. Linda, did Patricia have any other friends or allies who might have survived? Before Linda can answer, a new voice cuts through the chaos. She had me. Everyone turns toward the church entrance, where an elderly woman emerges from the shadows. She's perhaps 65, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that burn with decades of suppressed rage. Despite her age, she moves with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to staying hidden. Who are you? Mills demands, his hand moving toward his weapon. My name is Margaret Chun. I was Patricia Vance's roommate in 1974. I was also the last person to see her alive. Sarah recognizes the name immediately. You're the baker. The one who found the locket in the cake. Margaret's smile is sharp as a blade. I've been waiting 25 years for this moment. Waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, to make Charles Carlisle pay for what he did. You sent the package to the police, Mills states rather than asks. I've kept Patricia's evidence safe all these years. Hidden it, protected it, waiting for the moment when it would do the most damage to the Carlisle family. Margaret's gaze fixes on Sarah with laser intensity. You look just like her, you know. Patricia, especially in that dress. What happened to her? Sarah's voice is barely audible. Margaret's expression softened slightly. She came to me the night before she was supposed to disappear. She was terrified but determined. She'd confronted Charles about the fire, about the workers who died. He'd threatened her, told her that if she didn't leave town quietly, she'd end up like them. But she didn't leave, Eleanor whispers. No, she was going to go to the police the next morning. She'd hidden copies of all the evidence in a safe place, somewhere she thought no one would think to look. Margaret's voice hardens again. But Charles found out. He came to our apartment that night with 2 men. I was working late at the bakery, so I wasn't there. When I came home, she trails off, her composure cracking. Detective Mills gently prompts her to continue. There was blood on the kitchen floor. Not much, but enough. And Patricia's locket was lying under the table, like it had been torn off. During a struggle. But no body, no Patricia. Just gone. Did you go to the police then? Mills asks. I tried. But Charles Carlyle was a powerful man. He had connections, influence. The police took my statement, but nothing came of it. They said Patricia had probably just run away, that the blood might have been from anything. Sarah feels sick. So you've been planning this revenge for 25 years. Not revenge. Justice. Margaret's eyes blaze. I've watched the Carlyle family prosper, watched them build their fortune on the bones of dead workers and murdered girls. I've waited for the perfect moment to bring them down. And my wedding day was that moment. Sarah's voice cracks with emotion. Patricia was supposed to be married on June 12, 1974. She died 2 days before her wedding. It seemed appropriate. Robert finally finds his voice. This is insane. You're all insane. My father is a good man. He built an empire through hard work and innovation. Your father is a murderer. Margaret snaps. And if you're not careful, you'll follow in his footsteps. What's that supposed to mean? Margaret reaches into her purse and pulls out a manila envelope, similar to the one Detective Mills carries. Because Charles Carlyle didn't just kill Patricia. He killed anyone who threatened his secrets. The fire in 1974 wasn't an accident. It was arson, designed to destroy evidence and eliminate witnesses. 3 more suspicious deaths over the years, all people who asked too many questions. She hands the envelope to Mills. It's all in there. Names, dates, evidence. A pattern of murders spanning 25 years. Sarah watches Detective Mills open the envelope, his expression growing grimmer with each page he scans. Finally, he looks up at Robert with something that might be pity. Mr. Carlyle, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning. On what charge? Accessory after the fact. Conspiracy to commit murder. And possibly. Mills pauses, consulting the documents again. Attempted murder. What? Sarah's voice is barely a whisper. Margaret's smile returns, cold and satisfied. Because this isn't over, dear. Patricia's killer is still alive, still dangerous. And now that the truth is coming out, he'll do anything to protect his secrets. As if summoned by her words, the sound of screeching tires echoes across the parking lot. A black sedan roars toward the church, its windows tinted dark. Sarah has just enough time to see the barrel of a rifle emerging from the passenger window before Detective Mills tackles her to the ground. Everyone down, he shouts as the first shots ring out. The perfect wedding day has become a war zone, and Sarah Whitmore is caught in the crossfire of a 25-year-old murder. The first shot shatters the stained glass window of St. Michael's, sending jeweled fragments cascading onto the church steps like deadly confetti. Sarah hits the concrete hard, her wedding dress tearing as Detective Mills shields her with his body. Around them, wedding guests scream and scatter, their formal attire incongruous with the chaos erupting in the parking lot. Stay down. Mills barks into his radio. Shots fired at St. Michael's Episcopal. We need backup and EMTs immediately. The black sedan circles the parking lot like a predator, its occupants firing systematically at anyone who moves. Sarah catches a glimpse of the driver, a man in his 60s with silver hair and cold eyes that she recognizes from family photographs. Charles Carlyle, supposedly incapacitated by a stroke, handles the wheel with the precision of someone whose infirmity has been greatly exaggerated. That's impossible, Robert gasps from behind an overturned planter. My father can barely speak, let alone your father's. Been playing dead for 3 years. Margaret Chin calls out from her position behind a stone pillar, waiting for the right moment to clean up his mess permanently. Another volley of shots sends wedding guests diving for cover. Sarah sees her mother crouched behind a memorial bench, her face white with terror. Eleanor Carlyle has taken refuge behind the church doors, her powder blue suit now streaked with dirt and debris. Detective Chin speaks urgently into her radio while returning fire with her service weapon. Multiple shooters, at least 3 in the vehicle. Appears to be a coordinated attack on the wedding party. The sedan screeches to a halt near the church entrance. 2 men emerge from the back seat. Professionals by their bearing, dressed in dark suits that do nothing to conceal the weapons they carry. Sarah recognizes their type from crime dramas. Hired muscle, the kind of men who solve problems with bullets rather than words. Charles wants the evidence. One of them shouts toward the church. Hand over Patricia Vance's files, and nobody else has to die. Go to hell, Margaret responds, clutching her purse tighter. I've waited 25 years for this moment. You'll have to kill me first. That can be arranged. But before the gunman can act on his threat, the wail of sirens fills the air. State police cruisers pour into the parking lot from 3 directions, their red and blue lights painting the scene in strobing color. The cavalry has arrived, but the battle is far from over. Charles Carlyle emerges from the sedan's driver's seat, moving with surprising agility for a man supposedly debilitated by stroke. In his hands is a hunting rifle that he points directly at Sarah. Everybody stops where they are, he calls out, his voice strong and clear, nothing like the slurred speech Robert has described from their visits to the care facility. The girl comes with me, or I start shooting civilians. Dad, what are you doing? Robert's voice cracks with anguish. Please, just put the gun down. You always were too soft, boy. Too trusting. Just like your mother. Charles's eyes never leave Sarah. As he speaks, did you really think you could marry into this family without consequences? Did you think I wouldn't recognize Patricia Vance's face when I saw it? Sarah finds her voice despite the terror clawing at her throat. I'm not Patricia. I'm her niece. Close. Enough. You've got her eyes, her stubborn streak. Just like her, you don't know when to leave well enough alone. Detective Mills shifts slightly, trying to get a clear shot, but Charles anticipates the move. Don't even think about it, detective. I've got nothing left to lose. Patricia's evidence comes out, and I'm a dead man anyway. Might as well take a few people with me. You don't have to do this, Mills calls out. Surrender now, and we can. Work something out. Charles laughs, a sound devoid of humor. Work something out? I built an empire from nothing. Created jobs, supported charities, became a pillar of the community. And for what? So some bleeding heart girl could destroy everything over a few dead Mexicans. Those were people, Margaret, shouts from behind her pillar. Human beings with families, with dreams. You murdered them to protect your profit margins. I protected American jobs. Those illegals were taking work from citizens, undercutting wages, spreading disease. I did what needed to be done. Sarah feels sick listening to Charles justify his crimes with such casual racism. This is the man she was about to call grandfather-in-law, the patriarch of the family she was joining. How could she have been so blind? The fire was supposed to look like an accident, Charles continues, his rifle still trained on her. Faulty wiring, overcrowded conditions. Insurance would pay for the damage, and the problem would be solved. But Patricia had to stick her nose where it didn't belong. She was trying to do the right thing. Linda calls out from behind her bench. She was everything you'll never be. Decent, honest, brave. She was a naive little girl who didn't understand how the world works. Just like her sister. Charles's gaze flicks to Linda. Did you really think I wouldn't figure out who you were? 25 years of watching, waiting for you to make a move. When your daughter started dating my son, I knew it was only a matter of time. You've been watching us. Sarah's voice is barely a whisper. Private investigators. Very discreet, very thorough. I know about your mother's debts, your father's gambling problem, your grandmother's medical bills. I know about every check you've ever bounced, every night you've cried about money. His smile is cruel. Did you think Robert found you by accident? I arranged that meeting, orchestrated your entire courtship. The revelation hits Sarah like a physical blow. Her love story, her fairy tale romance, has been manipulation from the very beginning. Robert's face confirms the truth. Guilt, shame, and something that might be genuine regret wore across his features. That's not. I mean, yes, my father suggested I attend that charity gala, but you genuinely fell for my son. Because he was everything you thought you wanted. Charles interrupts. Rich, handsome, charming. The perfect solution to all your problems. Just like Patricia fell for me 30 years ago. Sarah's world continues to crumble. You dated Patricia before she was engaged to your father? Oh, my dear girl. Haven't you figured it out yet? Charles's laugh is genuinely amused now. Charles Carlyle Sr. died in 1960. I am Charles Carlyle Jr. Patricia Vance was my fiancée, not my father's. The lie unravels in Sarah's mind like a pulled thread. Robert isn't Charles's son, he's his grandson. Which means Charles isn't 60-something. He's in his 70s, old enough to have been Patricia's contemporary. The stroke story, the care facility, the gentle grandfather figure, all of it has been an elaborate deception. Robert, did you know? Sarah's voice is hollow. He told me it was for tax purposes. The identity confusion. I mean, He said it was easier to let people think he was younger, that it helped with business. Robert's voice carries the weight of a man realizing he's been as manipulated as everyone else. Business, Charles spits. Everything is about business, boy. Profit and loss, assets and liabilities. Your pretty little bride was always going to be a liability. The state police have formed a perimeter around the parking lot, but they're keeping their distance, unwilling to risk civilian casualties. Charles seems to realize his time is running out, his grip tightening on the rifle. Here's what's going to happen, he announces. The girl comes with me. Quietly, peacefully. In exchange, I'll tell you where to find Patricia Vance's body. Sarah's. Blood turns to ice. You kept her body? Insurance policy. Never know when you might need to produce evidence of an accident. His eyes glitter with malice. She's been waiting 25 years to see her sister again. I thought it might be nice to arrange a reunion. Linda Whitmore's scream of rage echoes across the parking lot. She launches herself from behind the bench, running directly at Charles with complete disregard for her own safety. You monster. You sick, twisted monster. Charles swings the rifle toward her, but Margaret Chun moves faster. The elderly baker hurls herself between Charles and Linda, taking the bullet meant for Patricia's twin sister. She crumples to the ground, her purse spilling open to reveal not just the evidence she's protected for 25 years, but something else. A small silver pistol that skitters across the concrete, in the confusion that follows as police converge. And sirens wail and wedding guests scream. Sarah makes a decision that will determine whether she becomes another of Charles Carlyle's victims or the instrument of his downfall. She runs toward the gun. Sarah's wedding dress transforms from fairy tale gown to hindrance as she scrambles across the concrete toward Margaret's fallen pistol. The silk tears against the rough pavement. Her grandmother's pearls scatter like lost tears, but she doesn't stop. Behind her, Charles Carlyle's roar of fury drives her forward faster than fear ever could. Her fingers close around the gun's grip, just as a strong hand grabs her ankle. She kicks backward instinctively, her heel connecting with something soft that yields with a grunt of pain. Rolling onto her back, she finds herself staring up at one of Charles's hired men, younger than she expected, with dead eyes and hands that reach for her throat. Drop it, lady. Make this easy on yourself. Sarah's finger finds the trigger. She's never fired a gun in her life, but desperation has a way of teaching fast lessons. Get away from me. You don't have the guts. His hands inch closer to her neck. Rich girls like you don't know how to. The gunshot that follows surprises everyone, including Sarah. The recoil slams through her wrists, and the gunman staggers backward with a howl of pain, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeps between his fingers, but he's alive. More than he deserves, Sarah thinks with a savagery that frightens her. Sarah, Robert's voice cuts through the chaos. She turns to see him pushing through the crowd of police officers, his face a mask of anguish and confusion. Thank God you're. Stay away from me. The gun wavers in her hands, but her voice is steady. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know who you really are. I'm the man who loves you. That's real. That's the only thing that's real. But even as he speaks, Sarah can see the doubt in his eyes. How much did he know? How much was he complicit in his grandfather's deceptions? The fairy tale prince she fell in love with is crumbling before her eyes, revealing someone far more complex and possibly dangerous underneath. Charles Carlyle has retreated behind his sedan, using it as cover while he reloads his rifle. Margaret Chun lies motionless near the church steps, Detective Mills crouched beside her checking for a pulse. Police sharpshooters have taken positions on the surrounding buildings, but the standoff continues. She's alive, Mills calls out, his voice carrying relief. But she needs medical attention immediately. Then end this, Charles shouts back. Send the girl over, and I'll surrender peacefully. Like hell. Sarah's voice surprises her with its strength. She struggles to her feet, still clutching the pistol, her torn wedding dress billowing around her like battle armor. I'm done being a pawn in your sick game. She steps into the open, ignoring the shouts from police officers ordering her to take cover. The gun feels strange in her hands, heavier than she expected, yet somehow natural, as if it belongs there. You want me, Charles? Come and get me. For a moment, the parking lot falls silent except for the distant wail of ambulance sirens. Charles emerges from behind the sedan, his rifle raised, but his expression uncertain. He's clearly not used to his victims fighting back. You're making a mistake, girl. I've killed before. I'll kill again. I know. Sarah takes another step forward. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not Patricia. I'm not going to run, and I'm not going to hide. I'm going to end this. Sarah, no. Linda's voice cracks. With terror. Please, just get to safety. But Sarah is beyond hearing her mother's pleas. 25 years of lies, 25 years of unpunished murder, 25 years of a family living in luxury built on blood and corruption. It all crystallizes into this moment. Margaret Chin has been shot protecting her. Patricia Vance died seeking justice. Sarah won't let their sacrifices be meaningless. Tell me where she is, Sarah demands, her gun trained on Charles. Tell me where you put Patricia's body. Charles's laugh is ugly, triumphant. Oh, that's rich. You really want to know? Tell me. She's in the foundation of Carlisle Manufacturing's main building, mixed right into the concrete when we poured it in 1975. Every employee who walks through that lobby is walking over her grave. The casual cruelty of it steals Sarah's breath. To murder someone and then literally build your empire on top of their remains. It's a level of evil she couldn't have imagined. You sick bastard. I prefer practical. Dead bodies tell tales. If they're found. But concrete? Concrete keeps secrets forever. Detective Mills has been inching closer during their exchange, using abandoned cars as cover. Now he's close enough to attempt a clear shot, but Charles spots the movement and swings his rifle toward the detective. I don't think so, officer. Back off, or I start shooting civilians. To prove his point, he fires a shot over the heads of wedding guests huddled behind the church. Several people scream, and an elderly man, Sarah recognizes him as Robert's great-uncle, clutches his chest and sinks to his knees. Heart attack, someone shouts. He's having a heart attack. The chaos provides the distraction Sarah needs. While Charles is focused on the medical emergency he's caused, she moves closer, her gun steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. It's over, Charles. Even if you kill me, Margaret's evidence will convict you. Even if you kill everyone here, the truth is already out. The truth. Charles's voice rises to a near shriek. The truth is that I built something magnificent from nothing. I employed thousands of people, supported dozens of charities, made this community prosper. One little fire, a few dead wetbacks, and suddenly I'm the villain. You murdered innocent people. I protected my business, my family, my legacy. Spittle flies from his lips as his composure finally cracks completely. Do you have any idea what it's like to build something from the ground up, only to watch bleeding heart liberals try to tear it down over a few worker safety violations? Sarah is close enough now to see the madness in his eyes, the complete absence of remorse or humanity. This isn't a man who can be reasoned with or redeemed. This is a monster who has worn a human mask for so long that he's forgotten what he really is. Patricia tried to expose you because it was the right thing to do. Patricia was a naive fool who didn't understand that progress requires sacrifice. Just like you. He swings the rifle toward her again, but Sarah is ready. The pistol buckets in her hands as she fires, the sound impossibly loud in the confined space of the parking lot. Charles staggers backward, a look of surprise replacing the madness in his eyes. Red blooms across his white shirt, spreading like spilled wine. You actually shot me. His voice carries wonder, as if he genuinely didn't believe she was capable of violence. I'm full of surprises. Charles looks down at the blood on his hands, then back at Sarah. For a moment, something almost like respect flickers in his dying eyes. You're stronger than Patricia was. She begged at the end, begged for her life like a whipped dog. His smile is ghastly. But you might have made a worthy Carlisle after all. The rifle slips from his fingers as he collapses to the pavement. Around them, the standoff dissolves into organized chaos as police secure the scene and paramedics rush to tend the wounded. But Sarah remains standing over Charles Carlisle's body, the smoking gun still in her hands, wondering if killing a monster makes her one too. Sarah. Robert's voice is gentle, careful. It's over. You can put the gun down now. She turns to look at him. This man she thought she loved, thought she knew. His face is streaked with tears, whether for his grandfather's death or for the collapse of everything he believed about his family. She can't tell. Is it over? she asks. Or is this just the beginning? Because somewhere in the distance, sirens are approaching. Not just ambulances and police cars, but federal vehicles. The FBI has arrived, drawn by the evidence Margaret Chin provided. The Carlisle Empire is about to face a reckoning that's been 25 years in the making, and Sarah Whitmore, who started this day as a bride, is about to become the star witness. In one of the largest corruption cases in Connecticut history, the FBI arrives like a swarm of dark-suited locusts, their black SUVs forming a perimeter around St. Michael's while agents in bulletproof vests transform the wedding scene into a federal crime scene. Sarah sits in the back of an ambulance, a shock blanket draped over her torn wedding dress, watching her life disintegrate in real time. Special Agent Victoria Reeves approaches with the measured gait of someone accustomed to delivering life-altering news. Mid-40s with prematurely gray hair and eyes that miss nothing, she carries a tablet that glows with damning evidence. Miss Whitmore, I'm Agent Reeves, FBI Financial Crimes Division. I know this has been traumatic, but I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with the Carlisle family. Sarah looks up from her bandaged hands, scraped raw during her scramble for Margaret's gun. Financial crimes? I thought this was about murder. It's about both. Margaret Chin's evidence reveals a pattern of criminal activity spanning 3 decades. Money laundering, tax evasion, bribery of federal officials, and yes, multiple homicides to cover it all up. Through the ambulance's rear window, Sarah can see Robert in animated conversation with another agent, his gestures growing more frantic by the minute. Even from this distance, she can read the shock and betrayal on his face as the true scope of his family's corruption unfolds. Agent Reeves, how much did Robert know? That's what we're trying to determine. But Sarah, may I call you Sarah? I need you to understand something. You weren't just an innocent bystander in this. You were specifically targeted. The words hit like a physical blow. What do you mean? Agent Reeves consults her tablet, scrolling through what appears to be surveillance photos. Charles Carlisle has been monitoring your family since 1999. The year you graduated high school, started college, began dating, all of it. He knew exactly who you were from the moment you walked into that charity gala. But why? What could I possibly have that he wanted? Information. He believed your mother might have inherited something from Patricia, documents, photographs, evidence that could implicate him. When Linda never made a move against his family, he began to wonder if perhaps the evidence had been passed to you without your knowledge. Sarah's mind reels. That's impossible. Mom barely talked about having a sister. I didn't even know Patricia existed until today. Charles didn't know that. Paranoia is a common trait among long-term criminals. They see threats everywhere, even where none exist. Agent Reeves pauses, studying Sarah's face. But there's something else. Something that makes your situation particularly complicated. More complicated than finding out my entire relationship was orchestrated by a murderer. I'm afraid so. Agent Reeves's expression grows grave. Sarah, we've been investigating the Carlisle family for 2 years, ever since a whistleblower came forward with evidence of federal contract fraud. During that investigation, we discovered that Charles Carlisle has been planning what he calls his final solution to the Patricia Vance problem. Final solution. He intended to kill you on your wedding day. Make it look like a tragic accident, perhaps a car crash on the way to your honeymoon, or a house fire that destroyed any potential evidence along with the last member of Patricia's family line. The ambulance seems to spin around Sarah. She grips the edge of the gurney, fighting a wave of nausea that has nothing to do with her physical injuries. He was going to murder me regardless? Even if I never found out about Patricia? According to our intelligence, yes. Robert was to be widowed tragically but quickly, leaving him free to marry someone more suitable to the family's needs. Someone from their social circle who wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions. Sarah thinks of Catherine's warning in The Bride's room. Don't let that change who you are. Had Robert's sister known? Had she been trying to save Sarah, or simply preserve the family's plans? Agent Reeves, where does this leave Robert? Is he under arrest? Not yet, but we're going to need his full cooperation in dismantling the family's criminal enterprise. That includes providing access to financial records, business documents, and testimony about his grandfather's activities. Through the ambulance window, Sarah watches Robert being led toward one of the FBI vehicles. He looks back at her once, his expression unreadable, before disappearing into the black sedan. The man she thought she would marry, the man she thought she knew, has become another stranger in a day full of revelations. Margaret Chun is wheeled past on a stretcher, conscious but pale. She catches Sarah's eye and manages a weak smile. Is she going to be okay? Sarah asks. The doctors think so. She was lucky. The bullet missed anything vital. But Sarah, Margaret wants to speak with you. She says there's something else you need to know about Patricia. More secrets? I'm afraid so. The evidence Margaret preserved includes Patricia's personal diary from the weeks before her death. According to the entries, Patricia discovered something beyond just the fire and the labor violations. Something that scared her more than Charles Carlyle ever did. Agent Reeves scrolls to a new section of her tablet, revealing photographed pages of handwritten text. Even from a distance, Sarah can see the increasingly frantic tone of the entries, the handwriting growing more erratic with each page. What did she find? Evidence of a much larger conspiracy. The Carlyle textile business was apparently a front for something bigger, a network of companies involved in human trafficking, drug smuggling, and political corruption that reached all the way to Washington. Sarah's head spins. You're saying Charles wasn't just a murderer. He was running some kind of organized crime operation. We believe so. And if Patricia's information is accurate, the network is still active. Charles may have been the Connecticut hub, but he wasn't the head of the organization. The implications crash over Sarah like a tide. So killing Charles doesn't end this. I'm afraid not. In fact, it may have made things worse for you. If the larger organization believes you have Patricia's evidence, they'll come after you next. But I don't have anything. I didn't even know Patricia existed until today. They don't know that. And frankly, after what happened here today, they may not care. You've become a symbol, Sarah. The woman who brought down Charles Carlyle. That makes you dangerous to them whether you have evidence or not. Agent Reeves closes her tablet and sits down beside Sarah on the ambulance bumper. Her official demeanor softens slightly, revealing genuine concern beneath the federal agent facade. Sarah, I'm going to be direct with you. Your life as you knew it is over. Even if we arrest everyone involved in this conspiracy, even if we shut down the entire network, you'll never be completely safe. There are too many people with too much to lose. So what are you saying? That I need to go into witness protection? It's an option. We can give you a new identity, relocate you somewhere safe, provide financial support while you rebuild your life. Sarah looks around at the chaos surrounding the church. Crime scene tape, evidence markers, agents photographing every inch of the parking lot where her wedding reception should have been taking place. Her mother sits in another ambulance, giving her statement to a federal agent while tears stream down her face. The life she built, the future she planned, the love she thought she found, all of it reduced to evidence in a federal investigation. What about my mother? What about Robert? Your mother will be offered the same protection if she wants it. As for Robert, Agent Reeves hesitates. That depends on what we find in our investigation. If he's innocent of wrongdoing, if he truly didn't know about his grandfather's crimes, he might be able to rebuild his life eventually. But Sarah, you need to understand, even if Robert is cleared of criminal charges, your relationship with him can never be what it was. Because it was built on lies from the beginning. Because you've both seen too much truth now. About his family, about yourself, about what people are capable of when they're desperate enough. Sarah thinks about the weight of the gun in her hands, the shock on Charles Carlyle's face when she pulled the trigger. She'd killed a man today. Justified or not, legal or not, that act has changed her at a fundamental level. The woman who walked into this church in a white dress and dreams of happily ever after no longer exists. Agent Reeves, if I go into witness protection, do I get to choose my new identity? To some extent, yes. Why? Sarah looks down at her torn wedding dress, at the scattered pearls that once belonged to her grandmother, at the empty spot on her throat where Patricia's locket should be. Somewhere in the chaos, she'd lost it. Another connection to the past severed forever. I want a name that means something. Something that honors the women who died because they tried to do the right thing. That can be arranged. A commotion near the church entrance draws their attention. Another black sedan has arrived, this one bearing federal government plates. The man who emerges is older than the other agents, silver-haired and carrying himself with the authority of someone very high up the food chain. "Who's that?" Sarah asks. Agent Reeves's expression grows tense. "Assistant Director Morrison. He only shows up when cases have national security implications." "National security? How does this involve?" She stops as Morrison approaches there. "Ambulance," his face grim with news that will shatter what remains of Sarah's world. "Miss Whitmore," he says without preamble, "we need to talk." Patricia Vance's evidence includes something we weren't expecting, something that changes everything we thought we knew about this case. He hands her a photograph, recent, taken with a telephoto lens. It shows a man in an expensive suit shaking hands with someone Sarah recognizes from newspaper photos. A United States senator. But it's not the political connection that makes her blood turn to ice, that it's the man in the suit. She knows that face, those features, that smile, that it's Robert's father, James Carlisle. The man who supposedly died in a car accident when Robert was 15. He's very much alive. And according to the timestamp on the photograph, this picture was taken 3 days ago. The photograph trembles in Sarah's hands as the impossible becomes undeniable. James Carlisle, Robert's supposedly dead father, stands in sharp digital clarity, shaking hands with Senator Bradley McKinney outside what appears to be a Washington, D.C. restaurant. The timestamp reads 3 days ago, and James looks exactly as Sarah remembers him from family photos, aged but unmistakably alive. "This is impossible," she whispers. Robert buried his father. There was a funeral, a headstone. There was a body. Assistant Director Morrison corrects grimly. DNA testing confirms that someone died in that car crash 17 years ago. But it wasn't James Carlisle. Agent Reeves slides closer, her tablet now displaying a complex organizational chart that makes Sarah's head spin. Names, photographs, and connection lines create a web of corruption that spans multiple states and reaches into the highest levels of government. "We believe James faked his death to escape a federal investigation into defense contract fraud," Morrison explains. "The body in the car was likely one of his associates, someone expendable who knew too much." Sarah's mind struggles to process the implications. So Robert grew up thinking his father was dead? Or did he know? That's what we need to determine. But Miss Whitmore, this changes your situation dramatically. If James Carlisle is alive and active, then the conspiracy is much larger and more dangerous than we initially believed. Through the ambulance window, Sarah can see Robert being questioned by agents near the FBI command vehicle. His body language has shifted from confusion to something approaching panic as the interrogation intensifies. Even from this distance, she can see the moment when they show him the photograph. His knees buckle, and he has to steady himself against the car. "He didn't know," Sarah says with certainty. "Look at him. That's not the reaction of someone who's been keeping a secret for 17 years. Perhaps, but we need to be certain." Morrison's expression is grave. Because if James Carlisle has been orchestrating this conspiracy from the shadows, using his supposed death as cover, then everyone in his family becomes a potential asset or liability, including me, especially you. "You were never supposed to survive today, Sarah." Charles's plan was to eliminate the last member of Patricia's family line and close that chapter permanently. But now you're alive, you're a witness, and you've become a symbol of resistance against their organization. Sarah thinks about the weight of Margaret's gun in her hands, the look in Charles Carlisle's eyes as he died. She'd thought she was ending a nightmare, but apparently she'd only torn away the first layer of a much deeper horror. What does James want with Senator McKinney? Morrison and Reeves exchange glances, the kind of look that passes between federal agents when they're about to reveal classified information to a civilian. McKinney chairs the Senate Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, Morrison explains. He controls billions of dollars in defense contracts. If James has compromised him, either through bribery, blackmail, or both, then he has access to contracts worth more than the entire Carlisle family fortune. So this was never really about textiles or even the workers who died in that fire. The textile business, the manufacturing facilities, even Charles's public persona, all of it was cover for a much larger operation. "We believe the Carlisle network has been siphoning money from defense contracts for decades, using it to fund everything from political campaigns to international arms dealing." Agent Reeves pulls up another section of her tablet, showing satellite Imagery of what appears to be a remote compound surrounded by high fences and guard towers. This is a facility in rural Montana, officially listed as a private hunting lodge owned by a shell company. But our surveillance suggests it's actually a training center for mercenaries, ex-military personnel who carry out wet work for the organization. Sarah stares at the images, trying to reconcile them with her memories of family dinners and charity galas. You're saying Robert's family are essentially domestic terrorists? Worse, they're profiteers who use terrorism as a business model. The workers who died in that fire in 1974? That wasn't just about covering up labor violations. It was a test run, proof of concept for making people disappear without leaving evidence. The revelation makes Sarah physically ill. She doubles over, retching onto the pavement beside the ambulance. The stress, the adrenaline crash, and the sheer magnitude of what she's learned combine into a wave of nausea that leaves her gasping. I know this is overwhelming, Morrison says, his voice gentler than she expected. But we need your help, Sarah. You're the only person alive who's been inside their inner circle and lived to tell about it. What could I possibly know that would help you? I thought I was marrying into a respectable family. I didn't know about any of this. You know Robert. You know his habits, his weaknesses, his loyalties. And more importantly, you've seen how he reacts under pressure. Through the ambulance window, Sarah watches Robert being led away in handcuffs. His eyes find hers across the parking lot, and for a moment, she sees the man she fell in love with. Vulnerable, frightened, desperate. For someone to believe in his innocence. You want me to help you turn him. We want you to help us determine if he can be turned. There's a difference. Agent Reeves closes her tablet and stands, preparing to leave. Sarah, you have about 6 hours to decide. That's how long we estimate. It will take James Carlisle to learn about today's events and mobilize a response. After that, staying here becomes impossible. 6 hours to decide what? Whether you disappear into witness protection and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, or whether you help us take down the entire network and end this permanently. Sarah looks around at the ruins of her wedding day, the shattered church windows, the blood-stained pavement, the scattered remnants of what should have been the happiest day of her life. Margaret Chun is being loaded into an ambulance, her sacrifice having revealed secrets that powerful people would kill to protect. Patricia Vance has been dead for 25 years, but her evidence might finally bring justice not just for her murder, but for decades of crimes committed in the shadows. If I help you, what happens to Robert? If he's innocent, if he cooperates fully, he might avoid federal prison. He'll lose everything. The family fortune, the business, his identity, but he'll be alive. And if he's not innocent? Morrison's expression hardens. Then he'll spend the rest of his life in a supermax facility, assuming James doesn't have him killed first to protect the organization. The weight of the decision settles on Sarah's shoulders like a lead blanket. 6 hours ago, she was a bride preparing for her wedding. Now she's being asked to become an undercover asset in a federal investigation that could topple a criminal conspiracy reaching into the highest levels of government. I need to see him, she says finally. I need to look Robert in the eyes and know whether the man I loved ever really existed. That can be arranged. But Sarah, once you see him, once you hear what he has to say, there's no going back. You'll either become our ally in this fight, or you'll become another casualty of it. I understand. But as Morrison and Reeves walk away to make arrangements, Sarah realizes she doesn't understand anything anymore. The world she thought she knew has been revealed as an elaborate lie, built on foundations of blood and corruption. The only question now is whether she has the strength to help tear it down, or whether she'll become just another victim of the Carlisle family's appetite for destruction that lie in the distance. She can hear helicopters approaching, news crews drawn by reports of gunfire at a society wedding. By tomorrow, her face will be on every front page in the country. Sarah Whitmore, the bride who killed a killer. There's no hiding from what she's become now. The only choice left is what to do with the power that comes from surviving something that was supposed to destroy her. The interrogation room in the Hartford FBI field office smells of disinfectant and desperation. Sarah sits across from Robert, separated by a metal table that might as well be an ocean. He's been given a federal jumpsuit to replace his morning coat, and without his designer clothes and confident bearing, he looks younger, more fragile, like The college student she fell in love with 3 years ago. Agent Reeves stands by the door, officially present to monitor the conversation, but really there to ensure Sarah's safety. The wire taped to her chest feels cold against her skin, a reminder that everything said in this room will be recorded, analyzed, and potentially used as evidence in a trial that could reshape American politics. Sarah. Robert's voice cracks when he says her name. I'm so sorry. For everything. For the lies, for my family, for stop. She holds up a hand, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Don't apologize for things you can't control. Just tell me the truth. All of it. He nods, running his hands through hair that's lost its careful styling. I didn't know about my father. I swear to you, I thought he was dead. I visited his grave every year on the anniversary, brought flowers, told him about my life. His voice breaks. I told him about you. About how happy you made me. When did you find out he was alive? About an hour ago, when they showed me the photograph. But Sarah, looking back now, there were signs. Things that didn't make sense, but I ignored because the alternative was too horrible to consider. Agent Reeves gestures for Sarah to continue, reminding her of the questions they'd rehearsed. The FBI needs specifics, names, dates, financial information that could help them trace the full extent of the conspiracy. What kind of signs? Money mostly. The family fortune was larger than it should have been, even accounting for smart investments. And grandfather, Charles, sometimes he'd make comments about my father, like he was still getting reports about his behavior. Reports from whom? I never asked. I thought he meant reports from friends, people who remembered Dad, and would tell Charles stories about him. But now, Robert's face crumples. Now I think he meant surveillance reports. My father has been watching us, watching me, my entire adult life. Sarah feels a chill that has nothing to do with the air conditioning. He knew about our relationship. From the beginning. I think so. I think that charity gala where we met, I think he arranged it. God, Sarah, I've been such a fool. I thought I was making my own choices, living my own life. But I was just following a script he wrote. The weight of mutual manipulation settles between them. Sarah was targeted because of her connection to Patricia Vance. Robert was used because of his connection to the family fortune. Both of them were pawns in a game they didn't even know they were playing. Robert, I need you to think carefully about this next question. Did Charles ever ask you to do anything that seemed unusual? Sign papers you didn't understand? Meet with people he introduced as business associates? Anything that might have been part of the larger conspiracy? He's quiet for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. When he speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. There was something. About 6 months ago, Charles had me sign some documents related to the family trust. He said it was routine estate planning, preparing for his eventual death. But there was a man there I'd never seen before. Older, military-bearing, spoke with some kind of accent. Agent Reeves steps forward, her interest clearly piqued. Can you describe him? 60s, maybe 70. Gray hair, very fit for his age. He had scars on his hands, like burn marks. And when he spoke, there was something off about his English, like it wasn't his first language. Reeves nods to someone outside the room. Probably agents checking the description against known associates of the Carlyle network. Every detail Robert provides helps them map the conspiracy's full extent. Did this man say anything to you directly? He asked about you, Sarah. Said Charles had mentioned I was getting married. Wanted to know about your background, your family. At the time, I thought he was just being polite, making conversation. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. 6 months ago, she was still blissfully unaware of any connection between her family and the Carlyles. But the conspiracy had already identified her as a potential threat, already begun planning for her elimination. What did you tell him? Everything. Robert's voice is thick with self-recrimination. I was so proud of you, so excited to be marrying you. I told him about your mother, about how strong you were despite all the financial struggles your family had faced. I even mentioned that your mother didn't talk much about her past, that there was some family tragedy she never discussed. Sarah sees the moment when Robert realizes the full implications of what he's saying. His face goes white, and his hands begin to shake. Oh God, I gave them the information they needed to figure out who you really were. You didn't know, Sarah says. Quietly. You couldn't have known. That doesn't matter. My ignorance, my stupidity, my blind faith in my family. It almost got you killed. Agent Reeves clears her throat, reminding them both of the wire, the recording equipment, the federal investigation that now controls both their fates. Robert, we need to know about the financial arrangements. How much did you know about the source of the family wealth? I knew there were multiple businesses, multiple revenue streams. Textiles was just the most visible one. But Charles always said the details were too complicated for me to understand, that I should focus on my own career and let the family lawyers handle the business side. Did you ever see financial statements, tax documents, anything that might help us trace money flows? Some. But I wasn't paying attention, wasn't asking the right questions. I was so grateful to be born into wealth that I never wondered where it actually came from. Sarah watches Robert's face as he speaks, searching for any sign that he's holding back information or protecting himself. But all she sees is genuine anguish, the pain of a man discovering that his entire life has been built on lies and blood money. There's something else, he says suddenly. The hunting lodge in Montana that Charles mentioned sometimes. He said it was a family retreat, a place to get away from the pressures of business. But I was never invited there, never even shown photographs of it. Who did go there? Business associates, mostly. Men I didn't recognize who would visit Charles for private meetings. They'd fly out together in the company jet, be gone for weeks at a time. Agent Reeves makes notes on her tablet, clearly connecting Robert's information to intelligence they've already gathered. The pieces of the conspiracy are falling into place, revealing a picture of corruption that reaches far beyond what anyone initially suspected. Robert, Sarah says, her voice gentle despite everything that's happened, I need to ask you something personal. When you proposed to me, when you said you loved me, was any of that real? The question hangs in the air between them, loaded with the weight of their shattered relationship and uncertain future. Robert looks directly into her eyes for the first time since entering the room. It was the only real thing in my life, he says simply. Everything else, my identity, my family, my history, it's all contaminated now. But what I felt for you, what I still feel for you, that came from me. Not from Charles, not from my father, not from their plans and schemes. That was real. Sarah feels tears threatening for the first time since the shooting. Through all the revelations and betrayals, part of her had hoped to hear exactly those words. But she also knows that love alone isn't enough to bridge the chasm that's opened between them. I believe you, she whispers. But Robert, we can never go back to what we were. I know, and I can't protect you from what's coming. If you're going to survive this, you have to cooperate completely with the FBI. You have to give them everything, even if it destroys what's left of your family. I understand. Agent Reeves steps forward, her expression serious. Mr. Carlyle, we're prepared to offer you a cooperation agreement. Full immunity from prosecution in exchange for complete disclosure and assistance in the investigation. But you need to understand, this isn't just about testifying in court. We may need you to make contact with your father to help us set up a sting operation. The color drains from Robert's face. You want me to betray him. We want you to help us stop him before he kills more innocent people. Your father has been running a criminal organization that's responsible for dozens of deaths over multiple decades. Patricia Vance was just the beginning. Sarah reaches across the table and takes Robert's hand, surprising herself with the gesture. His skin is cold, his pulse rapid with fear. This is the only way it ends, she tells him. The only way either of us has a chance at a real life. Robert stares down at their joined hands. Hands that should have exchanged wedding rings, that should have built a life together based on truth instead of deception. If I do this, if I help you catch him, what happens to us? Sarah knows the answer even before Agent Reeves speaks. There is no us anymore. There are only two people trying to survive the explosion of a conspiracy that was decades in the making. That's up to Sarah, Reeves says diplomatically, but Sarah knows the truth. Even if Robert is completely innocent, even if he cooperates fully and helps bring down his father's organization, they can never be together. They've both seen too much, survived too much, been changed too fundamentally by the events of this day. I'll always love you, she tells him, meaning it completely. But I can't marry you. I can't be part of this world anymore. Robert nods, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. I know. But Sarah, promise me something. When this is all over, When the trials are finished and the conspiracy is exposed, promise me you'll find a way to be happy. Promise me you won't let what my family did destroy your capacity for joy. It's a promise she's not sure she can keep, but she makes it anyway. Because in the end, that's what love really means. Wanting someone's happiness even when it doesn't include you. I promise. Agent Reeves opens the door, signaling that their time is up. In a few minutes, Robert will be taken to a safe house to begin his cooperation with the investigation. Sarah will disappear into a new identity, leaving behind everything she's ever known in order to stay alive. But first, they have one last moment together. Two people who loved each other in a world built on lies, saying goodbye to the future they'll never have.